Well, good morning, Southern Oregon. It's Alice Lima and Pete Belcastro here on the Real Estate Show, here for Southern Oregon's one and only real estate talk show. And every week we have interesting guests and lots of market stats. And we're going to be talking with Pete right now, just briefly, about what's been going on with his week.
Well, where are we at? We're almost to August. We're halfway through July. And we're still in the COVID months, Alice. So what in the world is happening around us? It seems, I'll tell you, when you look at the stats each week as we've been following them, they continue to be steady. There's a lot of activity going on. The price ranges, and what we saw a month ago was that people were buying higher priced houses. Remember that? More than half the houses were above the $350,000 level. Well, look, that's continued. And so there's a lot of activity going on because interest rates this week have really fallen, if we can even believe this, below 3%. That's driving everything. And so you're seeing the result of how often have you ever said, look, it's a great time to sell and it's a great time to buy, all in the same sentence?
It's an amazing confluence, and we're so lucky to be living here in Southern Oregon, where it's so beautiful, and we have a lot of really nice properties to choose from. So I know I reached out to all of my millennial family, friends, even strangers, millennials, and said, go run to a lender right this second. You're never going to have this chance again.
Well, you said that the Achilles heel of the whole thing is low inventory in a lot of the price ranges, and that still is kind of the problem that you find out there. I was lucky this last week. I'll brag. I showed like $1 million properties out, and there were a lot of them to look at. It was really interesting. But boy, try to find something for $250,000 or $275,000, and you can't. So that's kind of sums it up. Hey, today on the show, though, it's really exciting because one of our original sponsors, Alice, was the Jackson Soil Water Conservation District, the JSWCD. And today we haven't talked with them for a number of years, but Kora Mousseaux is going to join us in a little bit. We're going to get an update. And why are you going to ask, is the JSWCD so important? You're going to ask that question? Yes?
Why is the Water and Soil Conservation District so important?
Because every property owner in Jackson County pays to support the efforts of what the JSWCD does, whether you live in the city of Medford, the rural, urban, Ashland, Eagle Point, everybody pays this. There's a great story behind it. And really, this is a great success story that the JSWCD has become in our county as a result of it.
Well, it's going to be an interesting conversation, so do not touch that dial. Alice and Pete, we're both brokers with John L. Scott here in Southern Oregon. We'll be right back. Well, welcome back, folks, to the Real Estate Show. I'm Alice Lima here with my cohort, Pete Belcastro. We're both brokers here in Southern Oregon. We both work for John L. Scott Real Estate, and we're so excited to be talking to Kora Mousseaux from the Jackson Soil Water Conservation District. She is a community water resource conservationist. So welcome, Kora. We're so happy to have you.
Thank you so much for having me. Really appreciate it.
So can you tell our listeners a little bit about what it is that your organization does and why we're so excited to have you?
Sure. Yeah. So Jackson Soil and Water Conservation District, we do a lot. Our primary goal is to provide technical assistance to Jackson County residents over a plethora of natural resource concerns. So our programs span from urban to rural. We do everything from small scale plantings to large scale irrigation projects. And yeah, our main goal is just to enhance people's functionality of their property as it relates to natural resources.
Well, and Pete, you've been a huge fan of this organization from years and years ago. Can you tell us why you're excited to have Kora on today?
Well, look, you got to go back to history a little bit first, because the soil and water conservation districts have been around all over the United States since the 1930s. They sprung up really out of the Dust Bowl days of the Depression, because so much soil and water was destroyed, and so they sprung up there. The problem with them for all those decades was the funding sources of what they had, because they were subject to the whims of county commissioners, the whims of governors, the whims of legislatures. And so some places did really well, some places didn't, some disappeared. But locally, I think it was around 2004, 2006, Alice, when C.W. Smith was sheriff in that group, where the commissioners, they pushed for a 5-cent levy that property taxpayers would support this organization, which would give them some more money, but would also give them stability in their funding of what they did. And the voters of Jackson County said yes in that year by a big margin. And so everybody, whether you live in the city or you live in the urban area, you pay that same 5 cents per thousand of your assessed value that goes to them. So I used to joke all the time that my particular property tax when I lived in Ashland was $13.50 that went to them each year. And it was like the best $13.50 of tax money that I would ever spend, because it goes to the organization that does so much locally just in Jackson County when it comes to water and soil, and trying to get us all to do it better, you know, to preserve it better. We can manage it better, whether you live in the city or you live in an urban area. And it makes property and the thing is, it makes property values better, higher. You know, it keeps our values, you know, up, because we have this infrastructure around us that can be supportive of so many different individuals and business and homeowners.
So Kora, how do you spend your day? I mean, what is the day in the conservationist look like?
Sure. So I focus more on stormwater management and also residential water conservation, which also includes primarily running our urban program. So my day-to-day is, as probably most people, lots of emails and phone calls, but I do planning of projects. We have a grant program, which is a portion of those tax dollars, thank you so much everyone, goes towards helping us fund projects, restoration projects, mitigation projects. So I do project planning for that. I also go out on site visits. So it's definitely a field job as much as it is an office job. And I go on site visits if people are interested in projects, but also if people just have questions. It's just a free consultation. So that can be everything from, in my field, from stormwater management, riparian restoration, things of that nature. So it always keeps me busy, and there's always something else, you know, going on. So it's not very monotonous. There's always something new we get to do.
So what would be a common inquiry from a homeowner in town? What do you hear from people who live within the city limits?
Sure. So a common thing that I get within the city limits is people with blackberry concerns in their backyards, whether they're along a creek or not. And so a lot of people will ask, how can they remove it? How can they replant the blackberry? So that's a pretty common one. I'd say another one is more drainage concerns in their lawn, if they experience any pooling or saturation, retention concerns, because perhaps they're overwatering. So I can also help with their watering schedule, or they want to install any stormwater things. So I'd say those are just one of the many, but those two I think are pretty common.
Well, I think that is really common. I didn't realize that you were somebody we could call. We're going to have your number all over the internet here in a minute. But Pete, don't you have a lot of people in town, like during the rainy season, the first year, they have weird water pooling in their yard or running down the side, and they don't know what to do?
Well, Kora mentioned stormwater runoff, and really, in addition to the two things, Kora, that you mentioned, you know, that happen inside urban areas, inside cities, a lot of us who live in the urban areas do not think about storm water runoff when we have a big storm up and what happens. And you know, DEQ, who we've had on, Alice, before, you know, they have strict, don't they have a lot of strict requirements regarding runoff? But what can we do in our own homes, in our own yards, to reduce the amount of runoff that we have? I know there's programs or something like that you have that deals with those kinds of runoffs from urban areas, right?
Yeah, so I think one of if you're looking for just an easier fix, because when I recommend things people can do in their yard, it's always what is going to be the most practical and the most affordable, right? First thing is likely people are overwatering. I see a lot of people watering their lawns every day. at odd times. And so I would recommend just reducing the amount or how often you water in your lawn, because if your lawn is already saturated, and then if it rains on top of that, that water has nowhere to go. So I think that would be the #1 easiest fix, is just to water less. Even on these really hot summer days that we're going into, I'd say a couple times a week is really all you need. There's a
Wow,
lot
that's
of
not very much.
overwatering. Yeah, I'd much rather recommend watering longer and less often than, 5 minutes every day. You want longer roots with your grass, and that's going to allow water to infiltrate better. So
Alice,
that's
Alice,
kind of
do
the
you
easiest
overwater?
thing.
Alice, do you overwater your stuff? I want to know. Do you do that?
I'm not in charge of the lawn, but I do know that it gets watered on a timer and it's very fussed over.
But do you know why? Okay, the reason, Cora, do you know why people can overwater in this valley so much? Do you know why?
Water is cheaper in this area than in a lot of other areas, so there's less incentive. Yeah.
You have hit you hit the nail right on the head. Water in the city of Medford, for example, is so cheap compared to living in Ashland, for example, where water is so expensive, or Talent, or other places, that people in Medford, for some reason, because it's so cheap, they water all the time.
Yeah.
They water all the time. It's amazing. And their bills are still $20 a month, $25 a month.
But also there's a lot of pride in home ownership. And I'm not saying that there's not in other parts of the world, but having a green lawn is kind of a thing in Southern Oregon, don't you think?
It shouldn't be. We're a really arid place. No, I don't. But anyway, that's my thing. I don't,
So that's a lot of really interesting information, Cora, about what you offer homeowners in town. What about the rural districts out in the country? What do you help people with out there?
Sure, yeah. So we have rural programs. Myself, we always say that there is an urban component to even a rural property. So everything around the home I could still help with. Similar if it was in in an urban lot. So just something to keep in mind. People who have pastures also most likely will have front lawns too. So I help with that, but we also have conservationists who focus on rural. We have a forestry and riparian conservationist. We have an agriculture conservationist. And so they help everything from fuels reduction, pasture management, grazing practices, ways to strengthen the soil so it's not overgrazed and compacted. So we kind of run the gamut. We also do a lot of large scale ag irrigation conversion projects.
What does that look like?
So it's essentially converting flood irrigation to sprinkler. So you're utilizing your same amount of water, but you're redistributing it in a more environmentally conscious manner, because instead of flooding out everywhere, it's on various sprinkler systems such as pivots, for example.
Well, and for the audience that's not aware of what we mean by flood irrigation, because some of us are country people and some aren't, can you backtrack a little bit?
Yeah, so flood irrigation has been around for, oh my gosh, a very long time. And I'm definitely not the expert, but my understanding is it's water that's sourced from a canal, and it's then essentially flooded over the property. So it's not on, like a sprinkler spray system. It's just like a wash of water.
And it's gravity driven more.
Yes, correct. Yeah.
And the problem with that for so many acreages that have done that is that you accumulate all the sediments that goes with it when it runs off into back into the
that's
ditch.
a good point.
So you're running the manure that's in the field, or you're running, whatever you put out there goes back into the ditches. So the sprinkler system, when sprinklers came out, it was great. The JSWCD, I don't know if you still do again, but used to have a program which took those sprinklers, and also now, Alice, they even have like these low flow sprinklers, called low impact sprinklers, that you can take that same thing, and with very little water, you can now take these things and really make pastures that kind of weren't there and things like that, because you've got better distribution, more efficiency of what little water you have. Well, things like that can really make a difference to somebody who owns a rural property, to know what programs are out there that can help in this area, because it's such a critical need in terms of water.
Yes.
So, Kora, when people move into our area and they're new to rural property in Oregon, what would be your best advice for them so they get off to a good start from the get-go?
Whew. Well, that's a great question. Our hope is always that even before someone purchases property, that they essentially know what they're getting into. And of course, there's going to be surprises along the way, but I think planning with everything, I think there's a lot of empowerment in planning. So if you have a vision of what your property, of what you want your property to look like, and you have a plan, or you know who to contact, I think that'll be, you know, a great next step in what to implement. So it's not only doing some research perhaps before you purchase an ag property so you know how much time and effort it takes, but also do some research on local agencies in your area so you know who to call. You don't have to be an expert in everything, but if you educate yourself on the experts that are out there, including the district, you know, we can help you. So there are resources out there, so it's to educate yourself on those resources so you're able to implement the things that you need on your property in a way that's going to help you, but also going to help the environment.
Well, that's great advice. We've got a quick break coming up. Pete Belcastro, Alice Lima here on the Real Estate Show, and we're speaking with Kora Mousseaux with the Jackson Soil and Water Conservation District. So don't touch that dial. We've got more good information for you coming right up. Well, welcome back, real estate fans. Alice Lima and Pete Belcastro here. We're both brokers with John L. Scott Real Estate here in Southern Oregon. And we're having a really educational and interesting conversation with Kora Mousseaux of Jackson Soil and Water Conservation District. And if you don't know about that, you do pay for it in your taxes, not very much, but it is an amazing agency, and they help you with all things water and soil, whether you live in town or in the countryside. And we were just talking before the break about rural property and how to kind of get set up ahead of time, right from the get-go. Kora, you were talking about maybe just having conversations with you guys.
Yeah, I think, yeah, just having conversations, having an initial property consult, and educating yourself on the agencies and the regulations in your area to know, so you can have a better vision of what to do. I think
Especially if you're coming from
step.
somewhere else, because Oregon has a lot more laws than other places, I think. Is that
Yeah,
true?
you know, I think it just kind of depends on the area. I've lived here for most of my life, so I can't really compare, you know, with learning other ordinances, but I think it is important to know that ordinances change if you move to a different state or even a different county. And so to educate yourself on those before you make any drastic changes on your land is a good first step.
Okay, so let's look what's happening in our area right now, Alice, and then you figure out what these people are supposed to do. 40% of our sales are from outside the place. Many of those are rural properties. If they're coming from where? They're coming from urban areas. They have no idea they're getting into things like septic tanks and wells and manure and things like that, run off into streams. You want to live by a stream, you don't even know what the rules are. And you're right, absolutely, Kora, that calling up the specialists, at least talking to them for people who are new living on these properties is really, really important. I encourage them to do that all the time, especially in woodland people, the small woodland lot owners and things like that. Let me ask you a quick question, not a reverse thing, but is the fair going to take place this year, the Jackson County Fair, and the animals and 4-H? Because I know you guys and Randy White, who's the executive out at the JSWCD, you guys are really involved with that too.
You know, I'm not aware if the fair will happen. I'd have to look that up. I haven't heard.
I was just thinking, especially
Because of the COVID, weren't there some talk about not having it?
Yeah, I imagine it might not be occurring, but I couldn't, you know for sure. I'm not as involved with the
I
fair.
was just talking about the animal part of the fair. The fair itself, I don't think is.
Oh, gotcha.
I'm just talking about the animal part, the auctions of the things like that. That's one of the reasons. It's a huge reason why families will purchase rural properties, don't you think, Alice? Because they have the opportunity for their kids to be an FFA or 4-H members. So they want them to treat to that rural life. Isn't that true? Don't you think?
That's part of the lifestyle that they're trying to get into, but a lot of them are not familiar with rural life. So it's so exciting. You can call Kora and kind of get some information ahead of time. And the other thing that I think confuses people when they move to Oregon, or even some of the locals, is understanding the waterways. Because if you live on a waterway, you don't own the water in Oregon. Is that right?
No, you don't own the water. No, it's a surface water. You don't own that at all. But I think you brought about water and what happens when people come in here. And I know the JSWCD has been really active over the years in creating and helping run, what are those called? The watershed councils, that have sprung up all over our areas. That's been a wonderful thing of trying to keep streams clean. You get a rural person, Alice, goes in there and puts a bunch of horses, a bunch of cows in a barn. You can't dump the manure into the stream. You have to hold it over here. And the other big issue in rural properties, again, I've learned over the years, is mud. Mud is a huge problem at certain times of the year, and you need to have a mud plan, things like that, because you can't just let that stuff go into the streams if you create it in a barn and things like that anymore.
Well, Kora, what's a mud plan? What's he talking about?
So I think a mud and manure management plan. So that's a plan that we've done projects. Our rural conservationists have done projects on that. And this goes by both land uses, really. You just don't want exposed soil, because once you have exposed soil, particularly compacted soil, once the rains come, it's just going to be a mud pit, right? So you're going to need to have a plan of amending soils, having drains, drain rock, grasses, depending on how your property is set up. You'll need something down so it's not just becoming a mud pit, or installing something like a French drain to pipe that water off safely. So it's not, because you don't want standing water either, right?
Right.
We're not in Florida. We don't want mosquitoes, right? So we want to avoid all of that. So that goes back to planning. You have to think, okay, I'm doing this on my property. What is this going to look like in 6 months, in 12 months? What is this going to look like when it rains? And I'd recommend when people first purchase their properties, when there's a huge, the first downpour, look outside. Where's your natural contours? Where's your property draining?
Mm-hmm.
And that could go, for both urban and rural. How is your property functioning? Do you see any pooling water anywhere? And then that can help cater you towards a mud management plan.
And an even simple thing is to just put gutters up on your barn.
Oh yeah.
Oh, I bet a lot of people don't do that.
Yeah, and you want to get the water away. So yeah, you just putting up gutters and putting a diverter, so it's piped away, because you don't want water collecting around your barn, not only because it's a muddy mess, but you don't want it to damage the foundation or any structures that you have either.
You can get rid of that mud also, because there's new permeable, what are those things called? Permeable surfaces, where you can use around barns and horses and other animals, even around your house. Permeable surfaces where the rain kind of goes down into it, or it melts and doesn't run off. And that really helps in terms of reducing mud around barns. I haven't done that yet at my new farm, but I'm getting rid of, I have a mud plan though. I started with gutters.
Nice. Good, that's the first step. Good job, Pete. Yes, mud plan. And permeable pavement is something that I definitely want to do more projects with permeable pavement. I think if you're already doing a plan like that, or like, let's say you're replacing your driveway, I think that's a great start. But it is kind of spendy, so it's not always doable for everyone. But I think, it's a tool in the toolbox if it aligns with your plan. And if you want something a little more compact, if you're having livestock coming through, and you want something more than just, you can't put a bunch of plantings in their way of traffic. So that is an option.
Yeah, mud.
So what materials? Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No, I'll say, when I was up, we had mud everywhere. Mud and run and manure everywhere. Nothing. Now you can't do that. I think it's great.
Yeah. And you have to make sure to put manure under a cover would be best, and
Right.
on a concrete block, so it's also not draining into streams or anything like that. That's where
Absolutely.
you do want to install the concrete. You don't want water to filter down.
Yeah.
So I bet a lot of people don't even know that you
No.
can go into that much detail. So going back to the permeable pavement, what materials are you suggesting for that?
So there's actually a lot of different kinds, and man, I don't even know like the different substrate layers like that I could explain the actual materials. I just know that there's basically permeable everything. There's permeable pavement, there's permeable concrete, which I think it's designed similarly, but they just create more porous areas, and then
Oh,
it's
gotcha.
able to drain down and then into an existing drain and then drain off site. And there's also, you know, something just as simple as pavers, you know, or drain rock. It doesn't have to be something super fancy, but basically any sort of concrete or pavement you can think of, you can buy a permeable version of it, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that's great. And again, I don't think people even realize that those are options.
Yeah, there's so that's, yeah, just goes to the education and outreach piece. It's a big thing that we do, is just to explain to people that there are options. Yeah.
So we have some places in town that seem to have the same kind of when it's rainy, they have the same symptoms. Like on one street, there's some places over by the new South High where their front yards just get that pooling of water like right in the middle. So if it's right in the middle of your yard, not on the side, how would you recommend fixing that?
Sure. Well, firstly, if it's right on the middle, I'd make sure, you know, that they're watching their watering times, as we talked about earlier, and also chatting with their neighbors, because if they're downslope from someone who's watering heavy,
Oh.
that might also be an option. If they've ruled that out, there is an option if they have enough room on their lawn to install a stormwater feature called a rain garden. And this is something that they'd want to call 811 before they dig, of course. But if their soil is just naturally, you know, heavy in clay and holding on to the water, you know, regardless of what they do, they can install kind of that channelized system, amend the soil and plant it. So any water that comes in, it can just naturally filter down, and it will beautify their yard too, and increase property value.
You see
'Cause it looks
those. I
cool.
thought they were just like gardener people, but they're actually creating a spot in the yard to collect water.
Yeah, well, rain gardens are just as aesthetic as they are functional, and it can, you know, be incorporated in a water-wise landscape. But yeah, it's an option if people want to create more of a natural stormwater mitigation. They could look into installing a pipe, but if it's an entire line of people, they would all need to do it. Otherwise, it might not accomplish much.
That would be a fun conversation, wouldn't it, Pete, to go talk to all the neighbors?
Yeah, but you're seeing that, you know, new construction in new neighborhoods, you're seeing those. I guess they're kind of rain gardens where directing the stormwater into those depressions, you know, around. I can't think of the name of them now, but you're seeing them in commercial areas everywhere, where they're areas where rain gathers. Instead of going right into the creek, it stops here first before it goes, so it cleans it out. And we're trying to keep the cleanest water we can in the creeks for fish. And you know, it seems to be working, because it's really, I think that the fish are certainly coming back. We're seeing them up in creeks that we haven't seen before. Small dams have been removed. The JSWCD has helped in that dam removal of small intrusion, things like that. So really, you know, we made a lot of improvement, I think, with their guidance over the last maybe 10, 12, 15 years to have cleaner water, have better land, have better, you know, the way we handle our own properties. And I think that's really been good for, especially to keep rural property prices up and keep them attractive to new buyers when your time comes to sell them.
So if somebody wants to have you come and talk to them, what's the best way to reach you and you know, get an appointment?
Sure. So there's a couple ways. We have like a general email blurb on our website, and then that's forwarded to the respective conservationist. But you could also call one of us. We have our main office that's posted on our website. And we also have all of our individual staff contacts, all of our office phone numbers on there. So you can just give us a call, shoot us an email, and we can set up a site visit. If you're not sure who to call, it's fine to just try someone and they can forward you on. But if you know who to talk to in particular, that can kind of speed up the process. And we have staff profiles, which kind of explains what we focus on, which might help people figure out who to call, since our staff is growing. We're now at 9 people. So
wow, that's awesome. That's all. And you can also
Yeah.
ask your realtor. There's another reason why you want to use a realtor, because they're educated and they can help direct homeowners to the right agency in Oregon to get their questions answered. So we've got a break coming up.
I was going to say their website is JSWCD.org. It's got all the resources you just talked about there. It's a great way to get started.
And we'll remind you of that again in just a quick minute. Do not touch that dial. Alice and Pete from John L. Scott Real Estate will be right back. Well, welcome back to the Real Estate Show. Alice Lima and Pete Belcastro here. We're both brokers at John L. Scott, Southern Oregon, and we're having a fascinating conversation with Kora Mousseaux. She's with Jackson Soil Water Conservation District. She is a conservationist, and we're learning all kinds of cool stuff. And during the break, one of the things we were talking about was what a nice surprise it is to find out all the things that your organization does.
Yeah, it's always kind of a surprise, various meetings, even with people within the natural resources. Not everyone has heard of us. So yeah, we always try to get the word out there that we're a resource, and we're a free resource for technical assistance and free site visits. So we're always shooting it from the, shouting it from the rooftops. So
and our taxpayers are funding your organization, so feel free to take advantage of it. And it does help promote the more stable prices of our properties. Excuse me, especially in our rural districts. We've got some very interesting things happening in real estate right now because of the COVID, where we have people coming from the urban areas, and Southern Oregon is one of the spots that they're choosing. And I know Pete's been tracking this very carefully the last few months. So what's going on lately this week, Pete?
Well, you just mentioned that I've sold 3 rural properties just the way you described them. People from the cities coming here to work, coming here to be, escaping those cities, and none of them you're the same way. None of them have any experience living outside of a city. And this is why realtors need to know what the Jackson Soil Water Conservation District, as one example, is as a resource where they can get information about how to manage their property right. They all want to do it right, Alice. You know that everyone who buys one of these properties wants to do, the right thing with them, right? I mean, and they don't know what to do. They just don't know what to do and where to go.
Well, and some of them are trying to embark on commercial farming enterprises. And I would think that you definitely want to talk to Kora about this before you try to do some large scale sheep or hemp or cattle or anything.
Is there a program out there now which is trying to rehabilitate cannabis and hemp property, former cannabis and hemp properties that have kind of been, I don't want to say destroyed, but have been whacked around? Is there a program out there to help with that, or some assistance with that?
I think we could definitely offer assistance with that. I don't know if we have a solid program for that. There's always so many program ideas that can add to the list of what to do, but we can definitely help with, people establishing like a new farming practice in old lands that, for example, used to be with cannabis, and strengthening the soil. We can definitely help with that if they have, resource concerns related to that. We can't help with the production side, of course, but we can help with the soil and the water quality side of it.
Also, yeah. Alice, have you seen all the hemp being put in right now, all the hemp going in?
I do. It's quite a bit less than it was last year, but I think part of that is just the normal evolution of a brand new industry.
Right.
It's going to have some waffling out of people who practices weren't quite productive enough?
A lot of the farmers this year growing hemp were not here last year, by the way, doing it. They waited a year, some of them, but also as a byproduct of what's happened, I've been to several properties where they grew hemp on them, they left them, and people are coming in to sell them now, and there's plastic all over the fields. They've not been picked up, and it's a big turnoff for buyers. So the sellers need to get those fields and those areas cleaned up. There's a lot of plastic still out there that used to be hemp fields. It's just been grown up and grass has overtaken them. Now you can't see it until you actually go walk on it.
Yes, plastic. When I was seeing all the fields of plastic, particularly last year, that was my biggest concern.
Wasn't that depressing?
It was very depressing, and if there was no plan to remove it, and I was also thinking of, you know, various chemicals leaching into waterways, if that plastic is just going to be there for years and years. That was the biggest concern. And I found it a little ironic because hemp can be this great renewable resource, but if plastic is being used to grow it and it's not being removed, it becomes a little obsolete. So that from my perspective, from a soil and water concern, that was my biggest thing that I noticed last year was all.
Did you have anybody reach out and ask for help of what to do with that?
You know, I think there was a couple inquiries, but it was more of our concern. I don't know if everyone who had purchased property was asking for help regarding plastic. I know that there were some other alternatives, but I think it was, you know, it was a finance concern. I think you could even use hemp fiber, but again, that's expensive. So, but I do think, I know that our ag resource conservationist has been researching hemp and how we can, you know, provide some tools and maybe, you know, material advice or something like that to avoid all of the plastic, to something that can be just as good with suppressing weeds and retaining water moisture. But we didn't receive as many questions as I thought.
Job to do. That's going to be a big job. I mean, it's a huge job, and whoever gets that right is going to make a lot of money. But boy, right now it's all plastic. It really is. No matter what you think. Some people tried straw last year. They didn't like it. Went back to plastic this year. I know.
Well, I love the idea of using a hemp fiber. If we could find a way to bring the cost down, that would be the bomb.
Yeah.
And it's biodegradable, so.
Yeah, it would be cool to have some other biodegradable means that is just as affordable as.
But I've noticed some of those owners of the hemp fields from last year are going back to cannabis this year, and the prices of cannabis is not that high either. So I was half expecting them to go back into grapes.
Oh no, the price of hemp prices are not depressed at all here. I mean, don't that's not true.
Well, the hemp farmers are still complaining the prices are low.
Well,
maybe that's just a farmer thing. Maybe the prices are always low.
Plus, it may be the grade that they have, the quality that they have, where it was grown. All those things play into the price. We've learned that, and you know.
So if you are a farmer, if you are someone who lives in town and you've got questions or issues with your land, with your water, we want you to reach out to Kora Mousseaux at the Jackson Soil and Water Conservation District. They have a website. What was their website again, Pete?
It's a JSWCD.org. It's a great resource, great place to start.
Kora, do you have any final words before we wrap it up for our session today?
Yeah, I just want to thank both Pete and Alice for having me on, and for people regarding, you know, doing projects on your property. I just always recommend planning is the #1 step, and make sure that you plan before you install. That'll save you a lot of headaches and unknown costs in the future.
Absolutely.
And put gutters on your barn, Pete Del Castro. Gutters on your barn. That was a great idea.
Yeah. And don't overwater.
Don't overwater.
Last word. Yeah.
Well, thank you, Kora. We appreciate you. Thank you, Pete. Always learn something when we're all together. It's the Real Estate Show. Alice Lima and Pete Bel Castro, John L. Scott agents. Call a realtor. You don't have to call us. We'd love it if you call us, but you just need to call somebody and get your questions answered before you make a purchase or before you sell. So have a beautiful Southern Oregon week, and we will see you again next week. The broadcast will also repeat again tomorrow at 6 p.m. on KCMX News Talk Radio 880. Have a great weekend, folks. Bye now.
Bye.
Bye.